My name is Ryan Gallagher, and we're here on the Leaguefeed.net podcast. Today with us is Bryan Reedy of Gamer Advantage, and thanks so much for coming, Bryan. I guess just to start off, tell me a little bit about your personal and professional background and kind of how you got to where you are today with Gamer Advantage.
Well, thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it. Wow, there's so many different ways to talk about it. I mean, it all really starts as being a gamer since I was like 3 years old. I got my first Nintendo when I was 3. I'm 37 now, so to put it in perspective, I've lived through all the generations or most generations of consoles and the beginning of PC gaming and just forever a gamer. I was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic when I was 10. I was in the ICU and they wheeled in Mario Kart,
Wow.
like a CRT TV. I think that's when like gaming became I realized it was at that moment in my life gaming was like kind of special. So I always stayed a little closer to it than like the average person my age because it was still like it was really getting big when we were in high school and college. I actually had the opportunity to be a co-host on one of the first ever FM video game radio shows in Detroit. This was like 2007, 8, 9, 10. On CBS. It was pretty cool, but it turned to a sports station and they said video games on a sports station doesn't make any sense, which is funny because if you fast forward to today, it makes perfect sense. So that was like my career in gaming. I went on to pursue a normal like post college 9 to 5. I ended up at Fifth Third Bank. I worked as a banker, as a branch manager. I worked in the marketing department. That was fun. But I didn't really enjoy working for the man. Kind of was hitting a ceiling a little bit. So I joined a family-owned optical distribution company, and I was in business development there. And one of the things I kept getting asked, just inbound inquiries, was to make blue light glasses for other brands like Instagram pop-up shops and stores on Facebook and such. And I did it a couple times. I'm like sourcing these $5-6 frames, selling them for $10, $11. They're selling them for like 40, 50. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like, we're on the wrong side of this equation as a business. But second of all, like, I really don't want my career to be making glasses where somebody's like, yeah, this will help you sleep and cure migraines. And what I thought was just really a bunch of BS. Like, I didn't want to be like a snake oil salesman guy. So, but at the time, I just had my first child with my wife and, I wasn't sleeping very well. And, being type 1 diabetic, I was finding it harder to take care of myself and with this new family and everything. And so I decided to like give it the respect I felt it deserved and started researching like blue light lenses, what it meant, like how just the whole conversation of light and sleep. And I was going to all the optical shows, so I was able to talk to a tremendous amount of doctors and talk to a few neurologists and opticians, ophthalmologists, that kind of thing. And after trying hundreds of lenses, there was one lens that I like physically felt different. Wow. And then I had my wife try it and I had my friends try it. It wasn't until we were wearing it for like 4 or 5 months, I was like, we got to do something with this. So I was just like, we should make gaming glasses. And the guy who makes the lens says, I don't know what that means, but I like your energy. And I was like, well, I'm like that. I've been a gamer my whole life. And there's only one other brand out there. And yellow lenses, goggle style, like pick you out. Just, it aligns with the pizza eating, Mountain Dew drinking persona of a gamer, where I was more going for the like sleek and modern and, more sophisticated gamer, which is what we are today. I feel like there's a lot of health in gaming and there's a lot of like, there's a lot where back then it was like the more ridiculous, the more gamer it was. So I just took a different approach to it and started Gamer Advantage 5 years ago.
Very cool. And now where are you based out of?
Just outside Detroit, Michigan.
Nice. Yeah. I kind of sensed a little bit of an accent there.
I've been told I have a strong Michigan accent. I don't know what that means, but I just always wanted to have an accent.
Yeah. I don't know if I have one either, but I'm like I said, I'm based in New Jersey. Grew up like outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but it's funny that I recognize it because I recently watched that movie. You ever see that movie Fargo?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Great movie.
So
great movie.
The Yoopers, don't you know? They got a little bit of that. Well, I bet you I could recognize your accent if we got you into an argument with somebody. And then I would know that you're from Philly.
Yeah, start talking about the Eagles and
Yeah, they're not playing so hot,
Don't. Yeah, please
I did it on purpose.
don't.
Go
Yeah,
Blue, though.
just had this conversation the other night with a couple of Giants fans, so it didn't go well. But other than that, going back to the blue light, and that was kind of one of the reasons I thought that this interview would be really cool, because number one, I work remote for a company that's in Germany, so I'm on my computer all the time, and then obviously I work on gaming websites, so I'm not like a crazy hardcore gamer. I think my experience more, like the reason I'm working on what I do is because I come from a journalism background. I also have marketing experience, so that kind of aligns me for working in media and the project management role that I hold. But I've obviously tried to get more into gaming since working with Treasure Hunter and working on sites like Leaguefeed, playing Nintendo Switch, and I mean the Fortnite thing, I feel like has been such a resurgence, and that's on Switch. So I started playing Fortnite a lot, and I still play GameCube. And my favorite game of all time is Mario Super Strikers, the soccer game.
All right.
And me and my friends love to play that. But yeah, I always wondered about the blue light thing, because from what you said, I'm like, is it BS? Is it a real thing? Tell me a little bit, like, your definition of what is blue light and what that means for someone like ourselves who are gamers and also connected all the time to a screen, working or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I'm not a doctor, but so everything I say is my opinion for the most part. But I have talked to a lot of doctors, and I have read a lot of studies, and I have done a lot of interviews. And this is what I've gathered and has been true for me personally, and also have the testimonials of thousands and thousands of people that agree, is that, well, first of all, we barely had electricity for like 150 years, let alone have any clue what exposing ourselves to all this artificial light all the time does. Like, all
Sure.
we need is the sun. That's all we need. That's our body's program for the sun. And so we're supposed to get sun in the morning, and we're supposed to get sun at night, and we're supposed to get these certain spectrums of the sun at certain times of day. And that helps regulate all the chemical production in our body with melatonin and the such. And so what I've experienced and what we've seen is that after the sun sets, there is a certain wavelength in the blue light spectrum that suppresses melatonin intentionally. The sun intentionally suppresses melatonin. But then when the sun sets, you're supposed to start producing melatonin, which is part of your circadian rhythm. And if you're exposing yourself to that same wavelength of light in that same color spectrum, then your body is saying, okay, well, wait a second, is the sun set or is it not set?
Yeah.
Now, is that going to happen immediately? I guess we don't really know. What we do know is that over time, though, it definitely is having a big impact on people's circadian rhythms. We're not nocturnal. So this idea that we can be awake during the night and asleep during the day and naturally regulate our body's hormones and chemicals is not, we're far off from being that type of species,
Sure.
So I think that once the sun sets, the more we're exposing ourselves to this artificial light, the less melatonin we're producing, and the harder it is to fall asleep. So things like digital eye strain, which is like a marketing term, there's a whole list of things you should be doing to be like a healthy adult, right? Like, one of the suggestions is drinking half your body weight in ounces in water every day, but do it before 3 p.m. and make sure you add salt and right? So it's like, there's 10 million things you should do. Sleep is the one constant that there really isn't much you need other than what your body is already providing you. And if you're disrupting that, then you're going to find yourself looking for other solutions to fix it. So one of the things that I was really against, or actually learned to become against, I had no opinion of it originally, was melatonin. And it's like, melatonin is not regulated by the FDA. It's looked at as like a food product. Mm-hmm. So what it says on the bottle doesn't necessarily match what's inside of it. And they have no clue what it means to overdose melatonin over and over and over again. You can
Sure.
definitely feel sick the next day if you take too much melatonin. But what does it mean for your body for a long time? We don't know. Melatonin's only been on the shelves for a short period of time as far as people taking it as a supplement. So I've looked at these glasses as the most natural, organic way to diffuse as much of that light that is disrupting my sleep. And the thought process is that if I can minimize the amount of that light in that light spectrum that's like the sun for as long as possible until I go to bed, they'll have an easier time falling asleep. Now, when you're on your device, and most people, like almost 100% of people I've talked to agree with this, is like you're on your device until the last waking second, and it's like you're almost falling asleep looking at it. So then you drop it on your face, or you finally shut it off and set it down. But then you don't fall asleep right away. It's weird. You were falling asleep while you were looking at it, but then you set it down and now you're not falling asleep anymore. And then it takes all this time to fall asleep. So let's say you get up for work at 7 in the morning. So you game until 11 p.m. Then you're on your phone while you're brushing your teeth and doing your business or whatever. Then you're laying in bed, you're watching TV. Now it's like midnight, you're ready to go to bed. Now it's like 12:30, 12:45. You still haven't fallen asleep yet. Let's say you fall asleep around 1 o'clock in the morning. There's simply not enough time left in your sleep to get optimal sleep. So the more melatonin you can produce, the better chances you have at high deep sleep time duration. You want to spend as much time in REM sleep basically as you possibly can. And where people are spending a lot of their time when they're sleeping just this much, it's in that light sleep and they're not really reaching REM sleep. And then we're seeing things like anxiety and ADHD and things come into the conversation of like, okay, does this person have an actual issue or are they just not sleeping? Because sleep has been the number one medicine since the beginning of time. Yet we're like, forget sleep, but oh my God, I'm having all these problems, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, overweight, all that. So like you work out, you look like you're a guy who exercises, right? Well, if you don't reach deep sleep and REM sleep, your body doesn't synthesize protein the same way. So if you work out, exercise, and take all this protein, then sleep like crap, like you're really not doing the full circle of what your body's supposed to do for that type of activity and to reap the benefits of that activity. So I've always taken the position, I don't ever want to give up gaming. I'm 37. I have tons of friends. The second they got married, the second they had kids, the second they got their real job, whatever, it was like gaming was the first thing to go. Because in their mind, it's like, this thing is bad for me. I'm just not going to do it. Whether you're like you on your computer all day for work, or whether you're like a professional gamer who's gaming the whole time, at the end of the day, better sleep is going to mean better performance, whether it's in your job or it's in the game. And this is the easiest, most cost-effective, most affordable way to possibly sleep better versus buying like a new mattress or some supplementing melatonin.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything you just said makes so much sense for sure. I mean, a gamer lifestyle is like almost nocturnal, it's like any gamer that's going to listen to this is going to be like, oh no, like how could this be true? Like I can regulate myself and whatever. But yeah, I think the thing that made me, I guess, interested in this is because, of general health interest, listening to other podcasts about, different ways to, keep yourself healthy. I mean, for myself, like it's now winter time and I'm, still grappling with like trying to get enough sunlight, trying to get outside enough, because obviously on the East Coast, and I'm sure for you too, like it's really like a crazy change going from when, October, November hits, that daylight stop, like we get the daylight savings time, and it's a really quick switch, it feels like, to going from spending hours outside, because, even after work, you'd have till, sometimes 9 p.m. in the summer to go outside and enjoy the sun. And then now it's, a lot of times, you have that time to get sun during the morning or midday. And then, you got to make up work at some point. So if I go out and, try to get in the sun in the morning, then I find myself working later into the night. So I always personally wondered, what could be a solution. I never really wanted to take melatonin either, because I'm not like a type of person that wants to take something just to take something. I want to know that, number one, it works, and number two, I'm not going to have an adverse effect. Whereas if I take melatonin every night, will that stifle me creating it naturally? I don't know. And again, neither of us are doctors or claiming to be for anyone that's going to watch this interview, but it really is, to me, like super interesting, to try to understand and see what we can do, because like you said, we only are coming into such a problem like this in the last however 20 years, maybe, if that. People working, or behind a screen for 4, 5, 6+ hours a day. Yeah, it really hasn't happened before.
Yeah, and computers started out with green and black screens, and yeah, it is very new. I just listened to a podcast the other day with the associate professor for the Sleep Institute at Stanford, and he said they don't have the data to say what it's going to mean long term to take that much melatonin. Like they just don't have it yet. Same thing with McDonald's. Nobody thought like eating fast food was going to be bad for you. Like it took people eating fast food for 50 years before they were finally like this isn't, like it's, can't do that. So everything seems to be reactive. Usually we'll wait for there to be a problem. Sleep is it's kind of like a silent killer. It's kind of like smoking. It's really hard to convince somebody to quit smoking. Well, once they have lung cancer, like they quit immediately somehow. They have the willpower to do it. Sleep is similar. You just don't attach it. But if you got really sick and a doctor came to you and said, like, listen, if you don't start sleeping better, you're going to die, you would take it more seriously. And people have been told that by their doctor. It does get that serious in some cases. So I think like when you're talking about going outside and getting sun, you're already 100 steps ahead of the average person in our community. I think it's like really some of that basic stuff that you got to do. And you have to pay attention to like, you shouldn't put so much. I was just listening to a sleep psychologist actually talk about how you shouldn't put so much pressure on yourself where you're like disappointed that you don't achieve these things specifically with better sleep. Like you're so, you wake up in the morning and you look at I wear the Whoop band, which is similar to the Aura ring, right? And you wake up and you're like disappointed. You start the day disappointed in yourself that you didn't get a good enough recovery score. And then you end the day and you're disappointed in yourself that you didn't have enough strain or whatever. That's not really the right way to go about it. I think what's important is to actually give credit to the things that make a difference. So one thing that's huge for me, especially being diabetic, but it's big for my wife too, is not eating 3 hours before I go to bed. Like that has absolutely changed the way I sleep. Again, consuming half my body weight in ounces of water and really trying to do it before 3:00. I don't do that one as much as I'd like, but it definitely has me drinking 5 times more. Okay, so I don't get to 95 ounces of water in a day, but I get to 70, which is like way more water than I was drinking before I tried to do the other thing. So I'm a huge fan of the book Atomic Habits. It's obviously super popular. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's one of the best books ever.
I haven't read it, no.
Okay, so James Clear, it's called Atomic Habits, and they just talk about how making a 1% improvement is like if you make 101% improvements, it can be more powerful than 100% improvement. But this idea that it's impossible to just one day wake up and say, I'm going to do all these things to start sleeping better. Like your New Year's resolution is a good time to talk about it. It's like, I'm going to start going to the gym every day. I'm going to start eating healthier. I'm going to start doing, and what he'll say, if you want to start exercising, how about just start by doing 10 push-ups while you're brewing your coffee in the morning? Do that for like 10 weeks without missing one. Then come talk to me about maybe going to the gym 1 day a week. Do that for 10 weeks. 100%. Then come to me and talk to me about going to the gym twice a week. This idea that you're just going to wake up and start doing all these things to change the way you feel, it just doesn't work like that. So when it goes back to like getting that sunlight and doing those things, really what I'm saying is like, if you're doing nothing, wear the glasses. If you're doing nothing, wear the glasses and drink some more water. If you're doing nothing, wear the glasses, drink water, and stand up every 20 minutes and walk around for 2 minutes. It's like the thing I have struggled to get any doctor or neurologist to agree with me on is that gaming can ever be healthy. Mentally, it can be helpful for things like dementia and autism, and it can be a great learning tool and all of those things. But physically, being sedentary has zero benefits, not one, ever, ever, ever. So it's been really hard to come across with the story that like it's okay to just game all the time. It's absolutely not healthy. And so how do we fit that? How do we make it so we do everything we can to make it more healthy? Our glasses are one of many, many things you could do. But like you said, when it comes to getting sun, no, some sun is better than no sun. But let's
Sure.
say you get no sun, don't also not drink water that day, not get up and walk around, eat like crap, eat right before you go to bed, watch TV until the last. You gotta do more than that.
Yeah, it's super easy to be down on yourself. I mean, for many reasons, but like, just like today here in New Jersey, it's calling for heavy rain all afternoon. The sun was
Yeah.
not out at all today. It will not be at all today. So yeah, it's easy from that perspective to be like, all right, I'm just gonna do nothing today. I guess it's a good day to do nothing. But then if it's wintertime and that happens 4 days in a row or whatever, it really gets to you. So, and then again, being on your devices, there's that whole obviously like mental aspect to going on social media, seeing pictures of a beautiful sunny place and you're not there, and like there's that whole aspect. So having something, I know like we're just talking about glasses here and going back to that, but it is having something that you can at least feel good about, and making a little change is definitely, yeah, like you said, better than nothing.
Well, it's effortless, right? And the other thing is, I want to reassure you, the sun is out. Just because you can't see it, only so much of the UV rays get filtered. So like even when it's cloudy, even when it's like seems impossible, it's still good
Yeah,
to go outside. Actually, some of the best advice I got when we had our first kid was take the baby outside like for 5 minutes every day, no matter how cold it is. Like that's good for them. And we did that a lot with our daughter, and it's just she's so resilient, I feel. And that I feel could be part of it, because just like this idea of being cooped up and being inside, like they make rain gear, they make winter jackets, they make like get out there, right?
yeah,
Like a little bit. I think is just you got to kick yourself in the butt. If you're not going to do that, of course, you could buy like infrared lamps and sunrise and sunset, mimicking room
sure.
lighting is helpful. Andrew Huberman talks a lot about that. There was one other thing I was going to suggest that you said. I can't think of it right now, but when it comes back to me, I'll bring it up.
Yeah. So I guess going back to that definition of blue light and then how that kind of connects to sunlight, what is the difference between, because from what I understand, sunlight contains blue light, but blue light isn't the same as sunlight. So what do you know what the difference is there, or can you
Yeah, I mean,
explain it for
again,
a
I'm not.
layman?
I wish, yeah. So I'll explain it like a layman, because I am a
Yeah.
layman. So I'm going to tell you out of everything I've heard from all the people with PhDs after their name, here's how I interpret it.
Sure.
There is a light spectrum, right? And it goes from red to blue, basically. One end's far red, and you got red to blue. Okay. So as you follow that spectrum in the sun, I mean, it's white to red, I forget. But there's a light spectrum. Now I really sound dumb, but you'll get where I'm going with this. There's a light spectrum. So as your eye perceives the light is light, right? So whether the light is coming from LCD screen or the light is coming from the sun, it's on that spectrum that's just calculated in nanometers. So they say blue light that's comes from the sun, which is part of the sun's light spectrum. So it is sunlight coming down in a blue spectrum, but it gets filtered by the ozone and all the
Sure.
other stuff that happens. That 455th nanometer area is the spectrum that suppresses melatonin. So the idea is, if man is awake when the sun is up, asleep when the sun is down, and has been for the last 50,000 years or whatever, I'm just talking modern human, when the sun rises and your eyes are exposed to it, the blue light suppresses the melatonin. So you can wake up, your body produces all sorts of other fun chemicals and hormones, and you get going for the day. Then when the sun sets and that blue light leaves the eyes, in a layman's term, now your brain says, okay, it's time to start going to sleep. And so here's the sunlight pushing down the melatonin all day because you're up, and then whoop, and then now it's time to start going to sleep. So the sun, though, this is the part that people have brought up that I spent a lot of time talking to people about, trying to understand it, is that the sun produces like I don't know if it's a million, a billion, a trillion, it doesn't matter. Way more blue light than your monitor produces.
Okay.
Like way more blue light than your monitor produces. Okay. But it'd be like saying, like, can your body handle like another pint of blood? Like, do you know? I don't know the answer to that question, but the odds are probably not, right? Like, your body is capable of containing a predefined amount of chemicals to keep and liquids and fluids and things to keep it surviving. You can't change that balance. You are biologically programmed to function a very specific way that we've never been able to figure out how it totally happened, right? It's so specific. So look at blue light in the same manner, is that like if we are programmed to the sun, then yes, the sun could produce a gabillion, drillion, whatever, trillion, million more times blue light than our monitor. But is the amount from our monitor too much for our body? And it's the opinion of a lot of experts that it is. That any artificial light, no matter where it comes from, no matter what spectrum it falls on, has no benefit. Like there is no benefit to artificial light because we get all the light we need from the sun. Physically, I'm talking about. Now, of course, there's like I said, red light therapy, and there's getting vitamin D from a tanning bed or whatever. But I'm talking about when it comes to like in our eyes, there's no benefit from this light other than if, let's say, you work midnights and you needed to manipulate your environment to wake up at 6 o'clock in the evening, which is very difficult to do. If you've ever worked midnights, it's very easy to go back to sleeping normal. Like it does. You can work midnights for 30 years. It takes like a couple weeks and maybe a week, and you're like, okay, I'm just back to how I was supposed to. You don't become nocturnal. So you're working midnight so you can manipulate your environment to like mimic a sunrise in your room when you wake up at 6 p.m. That could be really helpful. Then when you come home, let's say, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun is rising, blackout blinds, you mimic a sunset. And though that can manipulate your body into thinking sunrise, sunset. But how you have to look at light is there's a spectrum that contains all colors in the world that the human could possibly perceive, right? And in that spectrum, in the blue light spectrum, there's a very specific wavelength of that blue light spectrum that science knows suppresses your melatonin. That's the sun's intending to do that. We're doing that same thing essentially when we stare at a computer screen after the sun sets.
No, it definitely makes sense. I mean, I know how I feel personally, and like I know that after being out in the sun for a full day, you feel great, you whatever, and then if you feel in front of a computer screen all day, you feel like you need to get out or like you need to. So I mean, that's just pure.
Yeah, because it's not nearly enough, right?
Yeah,
it's not. Not only is it the screen is not enough to mimic the sun to wake you up, the screen is also it's not a replacement for the sun. So this idea of comparing the sun to your computer screen, it's happening. It's like you just can't. It's so hard to even explain how big of a deal the sun is into how we function as human beings.
Yep.